on behalf of myself and my colleagues here at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research, I would like to warmly welcome you to this online seminar to discuss how to make use of the ECF4CLIM-Roadmap for sustainability education. My name is Terhi Nokkala, and I think I know most of you, but for those of you whom I do not know, I work here at the Finnish Institute for Educational Research, and together with my colleagues, Professor Hannu Heikkinen and our postdocs, Niina Mykrä and Anna Lehtinen, we have been responsible for the development of the roadmap in the context of the ECF4CLIM project. The roadmap is intended to help the educational community to develop and foster sustainability competencies, both for individuals as well as educational organizations. The roadmap draws from and takes further the European Competence Framework for Sustainability, so-called Green Comp, developed by the EU's Joint Research Centre and published earlier this year. In this event, we have as participants both the ECF4CLIM partners and our demonstration sites, schools and universities, as well as other ECF4CLIM collaborators and stakeholders, and people generally interested in sustainability education. It's lovely to see you all here today, and we hope that we can, in this event, generate an open and fruitful discussion on how to use the sustainability roadmap. Our program today is here on the screen. First, we'll present very briefly the Green Comp for those of you who are not familiar with it, and then we will proceed to presenting and discussing the ECF4CLIM roadmap in 2 steps. After each of these steps, there will be time for discussion in small groups, and we will give you further information about how the group discussions will proceed a little bit later on. At the end of the seminar, we've set a little bit of time for our Hungarian partners from TEBAK, who will present their drafts on computer games that aim at using and promoting the roadmap in school settings. Here on the screen, you can now see a very short presentation of the ECF4CLIM project, which is a 4-year international EU project. ECF4CLIM has several partner countries, schools and universities, including organizations in Spain, Finland, Portugal, and Romania, as well as technical partners in Hungary and Greece. And the project itself is funded by the Horizon 2020 and is part of the European Green Deal. And main aim of this project is and the entire funding action is to promote climate change mitigation and sustainability in education in Europe. Next, I will give word to Professor Hannu Heikkinen, who will very briefly introduce the Green Comp framework before we go on to looking at the roadmap itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Terhi, and welcome to this session about the roadmap for sustainability. This is the main task for us. I mean, I think we all more or less agree that sustainability is the most important thing to do in Europe and as well as in the globe more generally. And so this Green Comp actually is one of those competence frameworks which has been published by the European Commission, or to be more precise, the Joint Research Centre of the European Commission. And this is kind of a starting point for us in our project. And some of you might know very well what this is about, but because there also might be some people who don't know what is this Green Comp about, I have to clarify just a little bit about what this is about. And actually, we maybe have to start with kind of more general outlook to the European competence frameworks. There is a number of different frameworks in the European Commission, including the entrepreneurship competence framework, digital competence framework, etc., etc. And this is one of them, but actually this is different, I would say. And as I already mentioned, this, I think this is the most important, because if we don't have sustainable life in this continent, we don't have anything else to do. But anyway, like the other competence frameworks, this consists of competence areas and competencies, and each of the competencies are then split down into knowledge, skills, and attitudes. And as you see here, there are these four competence areas. It's about values, it's about understanding the complexity of the sustainability issues, it's about visioning the future, and of course the action itself. These are the competence areas. And this picture more or less shows the overview of the Green Comp that has been published by the European Commission Joint Research Center. But this is not the outcome of our project. This is a starting point. I would introduce then the starting point for a roadmap. And here you can see more precisely the different competence areas. For example, let's take the first, the upper corner, the left-hand side, embodying sustainability values. And it consists of valuing sustainability. Of course, we must understand and acknowledge how important it is to promote sustainability in our way of life. It's about supporting fairness. This is very much about the social sustainability, so to say. It's about advocating equity and justice for the current and future generations, and so on and so forth. Promoting nature means that we understand the ecosystems as the kind of basis of the human life in general. Then on the left-hand side, embracing complexity refers to the understanding of how intertwined these problems are, actually. So if we try to solve one problem, we can't only solve that problem, but there is a bunch of problems that we have to try to solve in the same time. So it's about system thinking. It's also about critical thinking and problem framing. So whatever problem we have in front of us, we have to frame it with other problems. Then on the right-hand side, in the upper right corner, it's also very important to envision different routes or different roads to the future, to envision sustainable futures. And so it's about future literacy, exploratory thinking. We have to be able to try different ways and try different ways to the future. But it is also about adaptability. We also have to adapt the changes around us in the ecosystem, and also the social changes in the same time. But of course, the most important thing is the ability to act in a way which then makes a difference. And it is not only about individual actions, individual initiatives, but it's also collective action. And it is also about political agency. So it's about being a citizen and voting in the elections and talking with the policymakers, etc., etc. So this is basically the Green Comp. And then we go on to the actual roadmap. So we started from the Green Comp, but then this was not the only thing that we have done, because we have done a lot of online and face-to-face crowdsourcing together with experts and teachers. in these 4 countries, Spain, Portugal, Romania, and Finland, and also a couple of international seminars. And this crowdsourcing then informs us to plan and to implement and to operationalize the roadmap. So now we are here in the red point. So we are now introducing the initial roadmap, and the rest will be history, and we all are part of this history. Thank you for being with us. So this is the way we have then described the roadmap. So we start from the engagement, and because it's quite clear that first we have to understand how important sustainability is. Then we enter to understanding the different connections, the complexities in sustainability. Then we go to envisioning the different futures, so to say. And then, of course, the end, the most important thing is to act. We also want to emphasize that all these steps actually are intertwined, so they are bundled together, and it is not quite step 1, 2, 3, and 4, but sometimes we have to step back and we have to understand how everything is connected here. Thank you, and I think now it's next Nina's turn.
So now we look at the first step of the roadmap more closely. The first step of our roadmap is engagement. In the picture, you can see corresponding areas of GreenComp, but as presented earlier, not only GreenComp, but also crowdsourcing and document analysis have influenced what this roadmap contains. The main question of this step is why and how to promote sustainability. It is also important to get on the same page. What are we talking about when we talk about sustainability? This engagement step has 3 parts. First, we should think how to engage, motivate, and activate all the people in our school or university. We need a participatory approach. We need time and space to talk and discuss on these issues together. For motivation, it is essential to make people think themselves actively what sustainability means to them. There should not be right answers, but space for personal reflection. We need to consider different people's needs and perspectives to motivate them in collaboration and try to find common interests. The aim is to share responsibility, not that one alone trying to save the world. We must let the students have an active role, for example, in identifying the problems and investigating schools' environmental performance and impact, and in creating solutions. In order to get people engaged, you need also something else than participatory approach. Why we must do something for the environmental issues? Why to act? Knowledge about environment, sustainability, and nature helps people to understand the importance of change. The main point is to learn to consider planetary boundaries. Human well-being is dependent on healthy ecosystems. We need both awareness-raising campaigns and inspiring excursions where experiences are shared. Sustainability needs also to be integrated in teaching in all subjects. What is the viewpoint to sustainability in different disciplines? What kind of examples we have in our own institution? Most probably after discussions and awareness raising, there still exists different values, for example. It is important to respect all the perspectives. People need to experience themselves as accepted and welcomed to collaborate. Therefore, we need inclusive value reflection and dialogue. Together, we are wiser. Different ideas, needs, and perspectives lead together to powerful and wise action. So we need to focus on dialogue and democratic decision-making on different levels of the school or university. For example, dramatic games and role plays, or drama games and role plays, are such creative and interactive methods that help in practicing this. That was the first step, and then to second step on our roadmap, that's connections. The second step asks, how is this context, discipline, program, course, or activity connected to sustainability and planetary well-being? Main question is how to frame the problem. What is the thing we should work on and get better in our context? This step includes also 3 parts. This all could seem a bit complicated, but that's because it is a complex issue. Everything is connected to sustainability, and finding the root causes of environmental burden is essential. To improve this kind of systems thinking, it is inspiring to make mind maps of the relations. We have one example about plastic in the oceans in our roadmap report. You can look it from there. At schools and universities, also cooperation with, for example, lunch and cleaning services is essential. If the lunch services, for example, do not serve sustainable food because it is not available from wholesalers, the most accurate thing is to influence on wholesalers. Also, technology should be critically scrutinized. Why do we think as we think? Our personal and collective assumptions, attitudes, and cultural conventions can mislead us towards unsustainability. We shouldn't be afraid of talking about controversial issues like eating meat or buying fashion clothes, because in these discussions we can uncover underlying assumptions. For example, we can use spoof ads and memes as tools in teaching, and studying history and different cultures widens our views. Also, in our own school or university, we can ponder what are the unchallenged conventions in connection to sustainability. Now we have found out the most essential components in our network concerning sustainability and scrutinized our assumptions critically. It is time to look at the footprint and handprint of the school. There are both negative practices that generate negative impact to environment. That is the footprint. Some activities, like teaching about sustainability and removing negative practices, has a positive handprint. It is essential to map the most acute and significant issues. Students can take part in the work as researchers. Mapping of footprint requires cooperation with stakeholders. To get the whole picture at school, it is useful to measure the use of energy and water, consumption, recycling practices, and also scrutinize the contents of teaching. So now we have talked about the 2 first steps in our roadmap, And now it's time for discussion. And this is how it goes. The task for the first group discussion is here. Introduce yourself to the group. Tell others what comes to your mind when you think about roadmap and your own school or university or other context you are coming from. Compare your ideas in the group. And for our partners in ECF4CLIM project, there is a bit deeper discussion. Discuss about the possibilities of this roadmap in our project and cooperation between you who are there online in this project. Now we are mainly thinking about this step 1, engagement, and step 2, connections. For example, value reflection, promoting nature, cultural assumptions, systemic understanding. So next part of the roadmap is visions. And this third step, visions, focuses on envisioning possible futures in our context. In this also adaptability, exploratory thinking, and visions of a desirable future are needed. This step includes also 3 points of view. First is future in our hands. When we to go forward with sustainability, we need to take future in our hands. We need to understand that our images and ways of thinking have impact in behavior and future. Asking where are we going is important. We need creative visioning. What kind of changes and trajectories are needed in our context? Future orientation is crucial for motivating people for sustainable changes and actions. It is essential to compare preferred futures with likely futures. What kind of future is expected based on the current trends and trajectories, and what we want to avoid and what we wish to strive for. Next one is thing that making a change is not easy. The change is possible only if it happens on different levels of attitudes, cognition, behavior, collective culture, and organization. We need to consider what are the barriers of sustainability and what could help to overcome the barriers. We need time and space for expressing concerns, comparing alternative solutions and outcomes and interventions. We need also to consider different stakeholders, emotions, attitudes, and structures that are needed for change. The goal is to strengthen collective hope. The third part of step 3, visions, is creativity and thinking out of the box. Complex sustainability issues demand creative solutions, learning something that is not yet there. Quoting Einstein, problems cannot be solved with the same thinking that we have produced the problems. We need to integrate different kinds of knowledge to address real-life problems, for example, inquiry-based and phenomenon-based learning, and integrating arts and science. And focusing on real-life issues helps forward. And here comes the last step, action. Without previous steps, it is not possible to figure out the right way, but action is something which is in the core and the whole goal of the whole thing. This step asks how to proceed with sustainability in universities and schools. how to walk the talk. There is 3 parts in this step 2. First, there should be places for sustainability activities at school or university. That means some kind of planned structures for it. New sustainable practices should be embedded in the normal everyday life. Then everybody is included. This enables permanent changes for sustainability. Unconnected projects are easily forgotten after the project ends. Activity for promoting sustainability is easier if there are structures, like working teams, specific times in timetable for sustainability issues, rules for administration, and persons in charge of sustainability as facilitators of cooperation. Defining power relations, authorities, and responsibilities are important, and leaders have a crucial role in this work. It is really important to learn also influencing on the infrastructures outside the school or university. And this kind of thing could be also a good exercise for students too. Well planned is half done, so we need some kind of action plan. Strategy and goals enable proactive progressing in the long term. Many people think that the planning process is only bureaucracy, but in fact it's a part of the journey. Skills, knowledge, and attitudes evolve during the planning work. To reach collective learning, everybody should be involved. All previous steps and viewpoints should be included. The plan should be based on the engagement and values of people, on connections, sorted out, metering of environmental performance, and visioning of possibilities in this context. And the plan should make action concrete. Who does, what, with whom, when, and with which resources. And then we come to the last part of the roadmap, resources. Money, time, and well-being enable activity. In many schools and universities, shortage of money, time, or well-being restricts activity. We must remember that these are really necessary resources. To change, the school or university needs money for procurements or salaries, time for planning and action, pedagogical tools and models, and personal skills, knowledge and abilities, and that includes also well-being. Resources for sustainability work could be acquired through prioritization and reallocating existing resources. Projects could provide some extra resources, but the risk is that the results doesn't last long if permanent resources are not available. Personal learning in the process and learning to coordinate activities effectively could be seen as permanent increase of resources too. So, because learning can no one take away, this learning is a big resource for schools. Here ends our presentation about these steps, and then we go again to the discussion rooms.
So this pretty much concludes our work, like the small group discussion and focus on the roadmap. Then on the screen you can see our Finnish team, and I think by now most of us already know most of you already know most of us in one context or another. But at this point I would like to thank you for participating so far, and I hope that you will next engage in a discussion with our Hungarian partner Trebak, who is responsible for developing educational games for the use of or fostering the sustainability competencies and fostering the roadmap. So I'd like to hand over to Nora and Monica.
So yes, this will be very quick, and I think most of you have already heard about this serious game, which is part of the digital platform. And we would have some feedbacks and ideas and opinion about some aspects of this serious game. So if we just, we will be very quick. This is going to be a serious game, which means that this will be a sort of combination between a platform to learn, but also a platform to play. So it will have knowledge bases where we give development materials for the children and youngsters, both in competencies and both in knowledge. And then we will have games. And we have this structure that the project in this learning game is targeting the children from age of 6 till the age of 25, so it's quite demanding. So we made a 3-year group. The smallest year group is from 6 to 9-year-old children, and then from 10 to 15, and the widest group is from 16 to 75. And we plan to have these 5 modules, and just the general structure of the game that they are registering. They study the knowledge bases, which will be presented in a very attractive and easy to digest way, like including videos, for example, or other attractive presentation techniques. And then when they studied the knowledge bases, they are playing with these mini games and also decision trees. And then if they have played enough and collected enough points or finished enough games, then they are the whole background is developing, and they will achieve the final goal of the game, which can be various depending on the individual story that we give as a background story to the group. And then visually it will be a quite attractive game, but this is not a moving game, this is not an action game, this is a serious game, which mean that we will have nice graphics, and then these mini games will pop up, and then they have to make their choices in the game. Yes, and this is one of the most important part of my presentation, because this is the place where we would like to have very much your feedback, because we have to decide which will be, let's call, the background story for the age group, because this will define the whole graphical concept of the game. So for the smallest age group, we have these 3 ideas. That the first idea that the venue of the game would be an abandoned space base, where there would be robots and fantasy creatures. That's option 1. And another option, which is close to their everyday life, is that we create a child's own room in the graphical content, and then we can cover things like toys, how to take care of pets, how to save animals. And yes, this is option 2. And then option 3 would be the family house of the child. And then the focus could be things like on food, energy, growing plants, recycling. And for the second age group, from 10 to 15, the not everyday circumstance would be a crashed ship in a dry sea, where they have to survive and to set communication from leftover pieces. And I can show you some drawings that we already prepared for this story. Later on, first I just tell all the possibilities we have as options, and then for this 10-15 years old, the second option for the story, that the place would be an empty or abandoned shopping mall, and then one of the focuses could be on clothes and smartphones. That's option 2. And then option 3 could be a sustainable dream school, which can have various focus like energy, water, plants, and everything related to sustainability. And then for the third age group, who are between 16 and 25, the not everyday story would be an abandoned old factory, which will grow into a self-sustaining mini world step by step. So as they play more with the mini games, their overall setting will be nicer and nicer. But this is true for all the concepts. So as they go on and play more with the games and finish more modules, they will have nicer setting for the whole surrounding pictures that we have in the games. Yes, the second option is also the Sustainable Dream School or Dream University, as it was in the previous group. And then the third option for this group would be a survivor camp in the forest, where they may use some post-consumer waste pieces that they found over there. So yes, these are the main 3 concepts. And okay, sorry, it stopped. Yes, and also what is important and maybe new for some of you, that there will be these knowledge bases with attractive content and then mini games to play. And also there will be a section on mental health and how to deal with climate anxiety, because we, as project partners, think that this is also very important to include in an educational material. Yes, and I will just show you the the 3 pictures that our graphical colleague has just drawn. So these 3 drawings, if we finally decide to choose this boat in the desert, then this would be one of the pictures that we would use. This is an outside picture, and then this would be one part of the inside of this boat, and this would be the place where they should find several objects, and then this would be the screen where they choose the mini games to play with. And yes, any questions so far? Because then I would like to present how we would like to have your opinions for this, to have them to choose the stories. Or shall I just go on?
This is
So
really
is there any
exciting.
questions?
This is really exciting indeed. Thank you for sharing the pictures, because from the pictures we can much better understand what it really might look like, and it's really impressive. Thank you.
Yes, that's one of the options, but this is where so I just show you this Google form where we would like to have your thoughts. Just a second. Yes, so yes, so I will, or Nora, maybe you can put this link to the chat. So we have this form for the vote, or collect feedbacks and ideas, what you think about these stories. And then I would like to ask the participants of today to save this link, and then to read this Google form and help us with their votes and opinion to decide which story we will have for the different age groups. So I just show you how this Google form is set. On this link, you can have the same PowerPoint as I just showed, and I have just some questions to know who was making their opinion. And then these are the important parts. So which story fits best for the smallest age group? And then there are these 4 options. And we will ask double questions because maybe this will help us in the cases when it's not very obvious which story was the most attractive. So we will have a double choice. Like the first question is asking about the best fitting story, and then with the same options, the second question is asking about the second best story to fit the age group. And then also in this section, in the following section, we would like to ask your opinion about the knowledges we should share with this age group in the game, in the knowledge bases of the game. So what kind of knowledge is most important to this age group, in your opinion, and how this could be learned through the game. So please send us a lot of very interesting and fruitful examples.
Thank you, Monica, very much for this very interesting presentation. I'm afraid I have to interrupt you because we are already over time. So basically what we have to do and what we want to do, thank you very much for being active in this session indeed, and we are very much looking forward to very exciting games in the future. Thank you, everyone, and we are looking for the future, looking forward to continuing this exciting project together with you, all of you. And thank you, Anna and Terry, for your presentations, and everyone for being a secretary and thinking aloud together with all us. Thank you very much indeed.